Everything is just energy, including words. There's a Nobel winning physicist by the name of Werner Heinsberger, and he stated that atoms or elementary particles themselves are not real. They form a world of potentialities or possibilities rather than one thing or facts. And I think that kind of ties into the whole about the because this whole thing is like the power of words. I'm gonna go into why words are so powerful and how beneficial to use it's so beneficial to use them in the right type of way and the wrong type of way. And when I mean right type of way, I mean like in a way that's more productive towards you. And then you can use words in an unproductive type. So I'm gonna talk about this Japanese scientist, and I'm sure some of you have heard about this. This happened in the '90s, but if you guys haven't heard about this, it's a pretty cool study that happened. So this Japanese scientist's name is Masaru Emoto. Excuse me for the pronunciation. But so what he did was, before we get into the study, so one thing is when water is pure, like it has no pollutants or nothing like that, when you freeze it, it turns into like pretty much crystals, but the crystals are like snowflakes. You know, they're like perfect hexagonal snowflakes. And when water is unpure and you freeze it, it just turns into like disgusting blobs of things. So what this Japanese scientist did was he had vials, and then on the vials he had labels. So they were like words written on like tape, I guess you could say. And some of the vials said like I love you, peace, gratitude. And then the other vials said like I hate you, fear, kind of like low vibration type of words, you know? And so then he left the water in the vials for 24 hours. And then after that, he froze the vials. And then the vials with the high vibrational words like positivity, love, they formed like beautiful crystals, you know? And the crazy thing is that the water that he used with the vials that had positive words was actually polluted water. So technically it should have froze into like a disgusting crystal, but instead it froze into like a beautiful crystal. And then with the vials that say I hate you, fear, stuff like that, that was actually unpolluted water. It had the negative vibration words on it. And so because of that, when the crystals formed, they were like all disgusting and ugly and just they weren't as beautiful as the high vibrational words. And I think that kind of shows, I mean, that's just one of the many studies, but that it was like a huge study. And I mean, he's written a lot of books about it, but it just kind of shows like the thing about power of words is like the most important thing is the self-talk that we have with ourselves, you know, because like we talk to ourselves a lot constantly, and a lot of us are unaware of the things that we say. And when you're unaware of the things you say, you kind of just like shit just kind of flies out, you know, like you're not really like thinking about what you're saying. And so that has been something that I've been working on, is just especially since like I've been doing research and like because I want to give you guys like good content and also like facts. I don't want to just sit here and talk for however long about shit just off the top of my head, you know, like I'm teaching, but at the same time I'm learning with y'all, so it's a cool experience. This is like the self-talk that we have with ourselves. It can be like so toxic in a way, you know, like I don't know, there's my mom always told me this story about there's this girl, she goes on a date, right? She meets up with a guy, they sit down, and then maybe like 5 minutes into the date, the dude's like, hey, you know what, I'm not really feeling this, I'm gonna leave. And she's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, blah 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 blah. But obviously that didn't feel good to her, so you know, so she went to her friend's house, and so she told her friend the whole situation. She's like, hey, this happened, blah 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 blah. And then the friend was like, well, obviously, like you're lazy, you're fat, like you don't work out, you don't make your bed, your house is dirty, you know. Immediately most people are like, well, that's not a good friend, you know. A good friend, your best friend would not say those type of things to you. And you're right, your best friend wouldn't say those type of things for you, but those are the words that you tell yourself, you know. And it's like even your best friend wouldn't tell you these things, so then why are you like beating yourself up so hard over something like that, you know? There's actually a rapper called Dizzy Wright, and he has this like amazing bar. It's like the person who spits it is the hardest critic, you know? And it's the truth, you know, like we're always our own hardest critic. And that's, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it can get to a point where it's doing more harm than good, you know? Like if if you're say you're like on a diet or you're working out, or you have some type of goal, you know, and you mess it up, or you just don't do it because you're feeling lazy, like that's a good time to be critical of yourself, because at that point you're just kind of like you're being lazy, you know, you're listening, you know how you have like that good angel and the bad angel on your shoulders. At that moment you're listening to the bad angel, and that's not a good thing, because we got goals, and we got to work hard for those goals, you know. And then I just kind of want to like break down the whole like positivity and negativity, like, you know, there is like, I don't know, in my opinion, there is no like positivity and negativity. It's like how I started the video. Everything is a vibration, you know, and certain words like gratitude and love, they have a higher vibration, whereas other words like anger and hate have a lower vibration. And so, because like there is no like good or bad, you know, like it's all perspective. It's how you look at it, but it is good to know like what is a high vibration feeling and what is a low vibration feeling, because the thing is like if you constantly have low vibration thoughts, like you're like, oh man, I fucking suck, I don't deserve this, this is stupid, you're just gonna attract more of that energy to you, you know. And then you're just like you're like digging a trench, and you're just digging yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. Whereas if you have like more positive thoughts, like I'm a beast, I'm a savage, like I'm smart, you know, like I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm happy, you know, you're gonna start attracting more high vibrational energies. And obviously, when you first started, it's not gonna like overnight. You're just gonna be like, oh my god, I'm so happy now, you know. But this is like anything in life. It takes time, you know. Like good things take time. It's like this one guy said, anything that comes easily will go away easily. Anything that takes a lot of hard work to get will it would be hard for someone to take it from you, you know. So what I try to do is I try to work for things that are like harder to earn, because then people can't take it from me as easily, you know. Because I don't like when people take my stuff. One thing that's really important is repetition, you know, like you do this like once a week, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna have a 5 minute practice of where I'm just gonna say high vibrational thoughts to myself, you know? Well, I mean, it can work, but it's gonna take a really long time for that, because those other 6 days, you're just letting your mind do whatever it wants, and your mind is automatically gonna go back to your default circuit of just repeating what you've already been doing, you know? And if you want to change, that means you have to change something about yourself. You have to change something about your lifestyle. Most of us know this, you know? It takes like repetition. Anybody who's ever worked hard for anything knows, or anybody who's ever learned an instrument, or anybody that's ever learned any skill whatsoever knows that repetition is the most important thing, you know? Like when you learn something, you got to write it down, and you got to keep writing it down. You got to keep like currently I'm on Duolingo and I'm learning Spanish, and if they didn't keep repeating all the sentences for me to keep doing it over and over again, I wouldn't know anything. I still don't know anything, but I'm learning. I'm learning. And like that's another funny thing is like I've been realizing what type of self-talk I've been having with myself. Like even just that moment I was like, I'm not learning anything, which is cool. I mean, it's just a small little thing, but it's those little small things that you have to like realize and start to switch, you know? Because a lot of us just go through life like in the default mode, you know, where we're just doing whatever we want, and we just it's hard. You need to bring awareness to certain things to start changing those things. And it's not easy, you know? It takes a lot of time. It's hard. So I mean, here's just like a couple rules to follow, or just I'm just giving you guys a couple rules to maybe look out for. But like, one is no name calling. Like, don't call yourself any names. Like, one thing people talk about is like that inner bitch, and they're like, oh, like I let that inner bitch get to me, you know, which is different than calling yourself a bitch, you know, because your inner bitch is like a part of your psyche, I guess you could say, and it's like it's kind of nice to identify that thing, because you can be like, okay, now I know like when you're feeling weak, you'd be like, okay, my inner bitch is talking to me, you know. That, I mean, it is a little self like name calling, but I don't find that to be that very devastating. It'd be much more worse if you're like, if you didn't listen to inner bitch, and then you're like, I'm a fucking bitch, I'm a like, and you just start saying like a bunch of like mean things to yourself, because like you already messed up, you know. And whenever you mess up, you just need to like realize, be like, damn, I messed up, you know. Like either if you can fix it, you should fix it. If you can't, then you have to be like, okay, next time this isn't gonna happen, you know. And then you should just move on. You shouldn't beat yourself up too much, because at the end of the day, like if you beat yourself up all the time, like you're just attracting those low vibrations. And it's okay to be critical of yourself, but there's a limit to it, you know. Like don't stay in that area for too long. Do it for like a little bit and then be like, okay, I've learned my lesson, it's time to move on. Let's get on, let's move, you know. This is a big one always, is just don't gossip about people, don't talk behind people's back. It's hard. I We all do it, you know. Like we'll be chilling, you know, driving in a car, and we'll be talking, be like, yeah man, remember when we met that one guy, blah blah blah. And it's like it's a way of us to communicate with each other, and like kind of like it's almost like a love language, but it can very quickly it can turn into a little toxic, you know. It can turn a little toxic, and then you're like, damn bro, like I felt good before this conversation, and now I don't feel good at all because we've kind of just been trashing this person, you know. It's kind of like drugs, you know. Like when the first time you take drugs, you'd be like, oh, I feel so good, you know. And then like the next day, you're like, man, why did I do that? Gossip is kind of the same exact way, you know. The first time you do it, you're like, oh, like that's nice. And then after, you'd be like, damn, like I don't feel like as great as I should, you know, because you're in a low vibration state, you know. And then another way, this is like a quick little, or like a little very small nuance, I guess you could say, is like if you ate like a shitty meal and someone was like, oh man, how'd that meal taste? You could be like, it was all right, you know. You don't have to be like, man, that shit sucked, you know. You don't want to, instead of like kind of like beating it down to the wire, you can just kind of, you can kind of go like the neutral path, you know. It doesn't, you don't have to praise it, you don't, but you can go neutral, you know. Neutral is always a very like, it can be a very strong place, honestly. Like if you're ever suffering or if you're doing anything, that neutrality, especially in your mind, is a very good place to be, because you're just kind of, you're doing it, you know. And that's important. Don't complain, you know. It's like Kevin Gates says, gangsters don't complain, you know. And like it's true, you know. Like you don't want to be a complainer, because when you're in a room with other people and they start complaining, it's just, it's not fun, you know. Like it's crazy because I mean I work in restaurants, so like people complain a lot, but I've definitely seen like one person come in the restaurant with like bad, or not even bad, low vibration energy, and they come to that restaurant and they mess up the whole vibe. And it's crazy because it's like what this is, like one person's energy just goes and it spreads through the whole restaurant, and now the whole restaurant was having fun and doing good, and now they're all like, dang, this person kind of like, it just drags you down a little bit, you know. And so just don't be that person. Nobody's going to want to hang out with you. If nobody wants to hang out with you, you're probably going to get depressed, and it's just a slippery slope. And then another thing to think about is like a lot of that self-talk is the way we describe ourselves, you know. Like you're like, oh, I'm just this guy, oh, I'm just that, you know. Like, oh, I'm not good with girls, I can't talk to them, you know. And then that self-talk is going to become your reality, you know, because at the end of the day, though, like the way our words are the way that we kind of express ourselves and the way that we see our own reality, you know. So like if you're like someone like a pessimist, and you're always just like, oh man, like world sucks, like humans are stupid, like this isn't good, you know. You're that's those are the self-talk you have to yourself, but then that self-talk is going to come out in the words, and you're going to start spreading those words into the universe, and that's just the way you're going to see life from then on, you know. And I personally, that's not the way I want to see life, you know. I like to see, I like to see the good in things, you know. Even though there is a lot of bad, like there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, but it's like you focus on the crazy, you're gonna attract more crazy to you, and that's just the way things are, you know. Honestly, you know, like I'm on YouTube obviously, but I watch a lot of YouTube videos too, and a dude that's been really like resonating with me is this guy named Wes Watson. He's just like crazy inmate, or crazy ex inmate, I guess you could say. But he's just like super motivational, and just like I just like the way he talks, you know, like he's kind of the one that kind of made me rethink the way I've been thinking about myself, you know. Because like how he was saying, he's like, when I'm in the gym, like I'm not thinking about, oh damn, this is so hard, oh damn this. He's like, I'm thinking, I'm a beast, I'm a savage, I'm killing this shit, you know. And that's kind of like, that's that. I mean, like he's like super successful, like stupid successful. And he went to prison in Cali, in like some crazy prison for a long time. And you know, like people like that, a lot of them aren't successful, but he is. And I'm sure a big part of that was just the way that his self talk was just so like rock solid, you know. And like actually, it's perfect. This happened to me today. You know, I was at the gym, and then I was like, it was a good workout. Like I did everything. I did everything. You know, I wasn't like crazy about anything, but I did everything. And then I went to the river, and I just wasn't not feeling it. You know, because I like to jump in the river. It was 37 degrees today, nice and chilly. But I was just like, damn, I'm about to jump in the river, and I was just like, I did it, and I got out, and I was like, man, today's just not my day. Like I'm just really not feeling it. And then immediately I was like, wait, no. Like, because if I keep telling myself that, then I'm gonna start getting tired, and I'm gonna start going into a more like whatever my thoughts are is where I'm gonna start going. So I was like, no, like no, 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 no. I'm not gonna say those words. I'm just gonna, be more grateful. Like that's one thing I do a lot is I'm always like, whenever I start like getting down on myself a lot, one thing I like to do is be like grateful. I'll think about be like, well, at least I get to go to the gym. At least I get to, at least I'm alive. At least I do this. At least this. Because it might not change your attitude like right on the spot, but at least you're starting to put in steps towards the path of like productivity. Every time you do like something small, you're like putting in a vote for that part that you want. Whereas if you like say like you self-talk yourself and you're like, man, I'm feeling tired, I don't know if I want to do this today, you're putting a vote into your lazy self. Whereas if you were like, man, you know what, I'm just grateful to like be here, I'm grateful to have a river, I'm actually super grateful to have that river, like it's changing me for sure. When you start doing that, you put a vote into the person that you want to be. And it's just like kind of like cool little way to look at it. But like most of us are just victims to our words. We don't even realize it. And once we start realizing it, we realize that not only do you have to be aware of it, but you have the conscious effort of changing it. You need action in your life, because nothing's going to ever change if you don't have action in your life. And I think this is a very important point. Like some words in life aren't there, they can only be defined by you. Like for example, like success. What does success mean to you? To me, success means like fulfillment, helping people, and having a lot of money. But that's my version of success. And happiness, like what does happiness mean to me? I really don't know what happiness means to me. I know like what happiness feels like, but see, someone else couldn't be like, oh, this is success and this is happiness. Because to me, I'd be like, no, this is my success and this is my happiness. And so you have to kind of define your definitions, but only not with everything, but with certain things, especially like success and happiness. If those are things that you're trying to get, then it's probably a good idea to have a definition for those things. So yeah, words that they shape our lens on life. Because our thoughts become our words and therefore our language. And the language you use is the way you communicate with people. And the way you communicate with people tells them a lot about you. If you're always like I said, complaining, they'll be like, oh, he's a complainer. If he's always like being positive, be like, oh, he's a more positive type of dude. And then it's like words, they provide like the basis for communications with other people. So it's honestly really important to know how to communicate with people. It's something that I've learned in my life and something that I'm still learning in my life. Because just because you say something to someone doesn't mean that they're gonna interpret the same way that you will. Most likely they won't, honestly, unless like you guys are good friends. Like good friends can talk to each other and be like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. Like we can like finish each other's sentences, but with other people, it's really important for you to know how to articulate your words, and it's something that I've been working on personally. Because I mean, English wasn't my first language. It is my only language now, but it wasn't my first one, and that's just an excuse. But that being said, my English class has always been the hardest class for me. But it's important to be able to articulate your sentences, and be able to explain ideas. Because I know I bet some of you have like tried to explain something to somebody and it just came out stupid, and they just laugh because they're like, what did you just say? And you're like, never mind, because like just because you had to thought an idea and you threw words out there doesn't mean that it's supposed to connect. It didn't connect to them the way you wanted to. It's kind of like art. You kind of have to like learn how to finesse it. You just gotta learn how to finesse it. And this is kind of something for you, is like the way people talk to you is kind of a reflection of them. So like if someone's like talking like angry a lot, or people, it's just very easy to tell what type of person is when you can hear their type of language. You know, some people are narcissistic, some people are pessimistic, and that comes through their language, through the way they talk, you know. And if you can tell that in other people, then you can guarantee they can tell that in you when you speak, you know. So it all starts here, you know. Your thought is the first thing that happens, you know, and the thought is what creates everything else. So that's why it's so important to self-regulate your thoughts. Another thing that you should look out for is like labeling people, you know, like seeing people be like, oh, this guy's a Republican, this guy's a Democrat. Because immediately what you just did right there is you created separation between both of you guys. And at the end of the day, like, we all just want human connection. We all just want to be like heard, seen, and we just want to, you know, like enjoy life together. And when you create that label, you're creating a separation between us. So now you can be like, oh, there's the enemy. Like you can have that thought because you create a separation. So don't be too quick to judge people, even if they are this or that, you know, because at the end of the day, it's only going to create separation. Your parents, they use the same language that their parents use, you know, and most likely if you haven't been very conscious or aware of your self-talk or the way you talk, you probably use the same language that they used. It's something to be aware of, you know, because it can be like a vicious cycle that keeps going down, down, down generationally. And so, like, notice, like, for example, my parents, they're very, like, they keep it real. They always keep it real, you know? And so whenever I have any crazy ideas about, like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, they're always, like, they keep it real with me. But a lot of the time, it kind of, like, it's like they're shooting me in the foot because it's nice to have support from those people. But at the same time, like, it also shows, like, oh, if one person tells you, like, oh, this isn't a good idea, and you quit right away, then you know you don't have the balls to like pursue that. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like I'm like, no matter what, I'm gonna do this. Like I've done a lot of things in my life, and a lot of things haven't worked out for me, and a lot of times they haven't worked out for me because I quit too early, you know. And so these are one of the things where I'm like, no, I'm not gonna quit this time. Like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. Don't talk about your problems, you know. Talk about your opportunities, you know. Like, for example, for me, I'll be like, damn, this video editing is taking forever. Like, and I'm like brand new to this. I'm not like very much of a computer guy, and I'm like, damn, this is taking forever. You know, I've realized I'm like, what? I'm talking about my problems. I'm not talking about my opportunities. Like, I have an opportunity to share things. I have an opportunity to put myself out there, and that's what I'm doing. And those are the things I should be focused on. You know, like, don't focus on like, oh, this person hurt me, and be like, this person taught me this. The way I was taught chess at like kind of a young age, and you just want to use your words like a chess master, you know? Like you don't really sacrifice a lot of pieces in chess. You can if you want, like your pawns and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, every piece counts. And that's the same thing with your words. Every single word you use counts. This is also something that I'm working on personally. So yeah, anyway, you want to be mindful about the way you use words, you know? You want to limit the low vibration self-talk, and you want to focus on more high vibrational self-talk, especially just like daily, you know. Be like, I'm grateful for this, I'm a beast, I'm smart, I've got a good memory, I have so many opportunities in my life, and just stay in that vibration, and it'll help a lot, you know. Something that I'm working on, something that you can work on. Hope you enjoyed this video. That's all I got.